Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is July the 7th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1443 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2022 on the Greco-Roman calendar. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign living ancient Article 3 Moorish American Moroccan Concert Court action. We are the sovereign living justice in captis diminution nullo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. All Moors are the original indigenous, sovereign, ancient Moroccan, Moorish American descendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith, trust, allegiance, credit, and energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural, divine, sovereign, ancient empire state for Morocco, or the Moroccan Empire, whichever you choose, and the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government. We are Washington District for Columbia. We are the Universal Moorish American Consulate and the Article 3 Moorish American Consular Court. We are peace. We are one nation, one state, one empire, and one God. We hereby accept our sovereign ascension and exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time. If there is anyone on the call who is on the call for the first time, I first want to say thank you for attending the call, because we have had new people coming along the way as we continue governing here on the land. And I want to thank you for being here. And I also want to just let you know that there may be some things that we discuss that you may not understand today, maybe, possibly. And if there is anything that we discuss that you don't understand, if you want to write it down and then do the study on it and then ask questions about it in one of our upcoming meetings, feel free to do so. So everyone can speak freely in these meetings in an orderly manner, of course. So if you have any questions about anything that we bring up, we would ask that you go and do the research on it before first, and then ask the questions about it, because we know that when we seek the information, the ancestral energies will bring it to us. That's how we've been doing all that we're doing. So with that being said, please keep in mind that we have been asleep, so clarity with regard to the things we say will unfold for you very quickly as you continue to do the study and to demonstrate your status and to craft your affidavits and to do the things that you need to do to free yourself. So over time, the things that we do say that you may not understand today will come back to your remembrance, and it will all make sense in a very short while. The frequencies are being raised very quickly here at Earth, and everyone who is waking up, they're learning more and more quickly. The new Moors coming in are coming in with their eyes wide open, and for that we are so grateful. Next week on the 12th, 13th, and 14th, the 13th of next week of July is the full moon, and it will be the largest supermoon that we've had this year. We have a series of supermoons that have come about just in this last 2 or 3 months, a series of them, and next week will be no exception. So we want to first acknowledge that the moon energy is already working in our favor. That's number one. And number two, we will be fasting as usual, our 3-day fast, which we fast the day before each supermoon every month. Whether we announce it or not, we're always going to be fasting from something around that time period at supermoon time or new moon time. I'm sorry, not new moon, full moon time. So our full moon fast will be the 12th, 13th, and 14th. And you can feel free to fast from whatever it is that you want to fast from, however you're led to fast. Some just do water only for 3 days. Others do sun up to sundown. Others fast from sugar or meat or negative energy, or, people just choose what they want to fast from. So that way we're all bringing our spirit energies together and being on one accord, even more so during that time period. And that way, as we move forward, the full moon energy can be added to the demonstrations that we're doing to make them even more powerful, more effective, more laser sharp, more clear, more of everything that we want it to be. So next week, the 12th, 13th, and 14th is our 3-day national full moon fast, and we have it every month. So choose what you want to fast from, or if you want to add something in for those 3 days. For some add in things like exercise for the 3 days. Extra exercise. For that 3 days, they focus solely on taking care of their bodies. Because they sometimes we have to actually put that into what we're doing, because sometimes we get so busy that we forget that we actually have to take care of these temples. So any new thing that you want to add into your daily regimen, that 3 days is a great time to start, because the full moon energy will make it more powerful. I can tell you that for sure. The energy works in our favor. So with that being said, I want to, as you all know, we have been talking about our Treasury and the monies. We have printed up our own national currency, and now we are going to be moving into an overarching currency that can be used in addition to our national currency. And the overarching currency is a currency that will be good for all nations to use. And currently, our moorishe dollarium, all nations who want to use them can use them. We want to do a uniform, universal currency that is in alignment with what's been done historically by our ancestors. So I want to show you a couple of points about that, about gold-backed currency and about currency that is backed by national resources. We have been looking through and studying lots and lots of information, both historical information as well as the Akashic records and our ancient records and all, so that we continue to move in this manner where our economic health as a nation is further manifested. So I want to call your attention to a Treasury bulletin that I came across in my study. This Treasury bulletin, and hopefully you can see this printing because it's very, very small print. This is the account of the U.S. Treasury, so this is like a bank account statement with regard to the gold assets and liabilities of the Treasury. And this was printed December 1980. And it tells, I wanted to bring it to your attention because it tells us the balance of gold that was in the U.S. Treasury account all the way up until there was no more gold in there. So as we know, back in the late 1960s, there was a lot going on, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71. 72, around that time with regard to the money, the currency, and I say currency because money is not really the right word. So for that, so this is the account statement of the Treasury at that time. And as you can see in 1968, it says end of calendar year or month. In 1968, there were 296 million ounces of gold in the Treasury at the time. And that slowly decreased and decreased and decreased as the years went by, all of the way until 1973. And again, these are entries on a bank account. Entries on a bank account. That means that the amount of gold that actually exists has no bearing on what we're looking at, because there's way more gold that actually exists than what's reflected here. What's reflected here is what they were counting as U.S. Treasury assets. Okay, so 1973 is when the balance went to 0. Okay, and we know what happened in 1971 and 72. They knew the subjects and custodians in the office of the Treasury knew that they were running out of gold in the U.S. Treasury. They knew that. So what did they do? They did a few distractive measures such as Watergate and all of this kind of thing. They did a few things along the way to distract the people. And then they said, okay, we're removing any backing from the currency. And then they redid what they called the Bretton Woods Agreement at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. And that agreement, initially that agreement was made in the 1940s. That was the first iteration of Bretton Woods Agreement. And back when it was first made, there was a promise to give the gold back to the nations who agreed to have the U.S. hold the gold. Okay. So, and as we know, 1971 happened and no one was given back any gold or anything like that. The people used to be able to take the notes and put the notes in and take them to a bank and get gold and exchange them for gold or silver. And then after 1971, they could no longer do that. So there has been, over the years, some confusion about exactly what type of currency was backing the U.S., was in the U.S. Treasury. So I did a little digging because I know that there's been hypothecation and subrogation and switcheroos and switching things around and altering the lettering on the money, on the currency rather, because it wasn't money, it was currency that they were using. There's been some switcheroos and things, so I did a little more digging. And I found out that, here, I'll show you what I found, because it's actually quite interesting to see what exactly was being circulated. So I came across in my studies, and I'll put it here on the screen for you. and just, let's see. Just a moment. Let me pull this up really quickly. Okay, this is it right here. So I was looking through Treasury documentation, and I came across this Treasury bulletin that shows the different types of notes that were being circulated. I did not know, and some of you may have known this already, but I did not know that at the same time that Federal Reserve notes were being circulated, there was also United States notes that were being circulated. Okay? And the United States notes were actually the real money. That was money. It was currency. And the United States, and there was a usurpation of that by the Federal Reserve, and because the Federal Reserve issued the most notes, debt notes, they just began to, again, capitalize on everything that was being done, which is just a usurpation, really, attempted usurpation. So I looked to see what type notes and what was the amounts that were in circulation. This is the most recent account that I saw, and they say amounts outstanding and in circulation. Total currency and coin is 2 trillion, is 2.5 trillion, a little bit more. Total currency is 2.4 trillion. Federal Reserve notes here is showing 2 trillion, 2.4 trillion, right? Just under 2.5. And then there's something here called U.S. notes. That's 238 million. So I said, well, let me just do a little bit more digging on why the discrepancy here, and where are the U.S. notes? What are they? Where are they? What's going on with them, and what's the difference? So I did a little more digging to find out what the difference was between those two, and this is what came up. Just one moment. So can you all see the $5 bill on the screen? I just want to be sure that you can see it. Okay. This is a United States note. Yes, Empress, now I see that you have one there, Empress. Does it say in the top, right up here in the top, United States note? Does it say United States note? It does? Okay. So that is actually real money. And it's got the red writing. Now we know what we talked about, red ink and red writing. That is actually real money that is backed by gold or silver. That's real money. There was a switch that happened. And the Federal Reserve note, they made it look very much like what is on the screen. Yes, there's a huge difference between those two. Huge difference between and the Federal Reserve debt note says Federal Reserve note, but it's debt versus the United States dollar. Okay, and the United States dollar, or that's on the screen, is one that was printed in 1963 when JFK was doing business as president. And we know that he was assassinated for this very thing. It had a lot to do with this because the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 had already been, there was a plan for that. Okay, and they did not want to continue, they didn't want that to stop, that whole hypothecation and subrogation. So they just issued a whole bunch of Federal Reserve debt notes that outpaced the United States notes. Now, we know that a note is a note unless it's backed by something. Our initial agreement was for money to be lawful money, lawful currency, lawful money. And as long as there was substance for substance, then the money was lawful. But when the substance for substance stopped with the Federal Reserve debt note in 1971 and all of that, then there was no more substance for substance, and it was almost a free-for-all. And between 1971 and today, there were more Moors incarcerated than ever before in history, used supposedly as surety because there was nothing back, no substance backing the money. None. And so that thing, doing business as Federal Reserve, now again, there's two Federal Reserves, and really three Federal Reserves, and one of them is fake. The initial Federal Reserve is a plot of land in at Hiawatha, Kansas. And it's called the United States Federal Reserve. It's a plot of land in Kansas. That's the first Federal Reserve. The second Federal Reserve is the Moors. We were the original Federal Reserve. And then there's the fake corporate one, the dead one. So what are we doing now? Because we have to, we as the Congress and as the people have to remedy this for ourselves. Okay, so the printing of the dollarium was the start of that, because we needed to issue currency that had our autographs on it in red, like the United States note. It had to have red on it. And that is why, because if you go back in history, the majority of the notes that had a red shield on it, because this United States, it has a red shield, and we know red shield is, you know, there are people who were claiming to be the Red Shield family. We're the original Red Shield family. Okay, and so this red shield and these red serial numbers, again, still Okay, ultimately still, that cannot be the real money just because we did not print that. We, the Moors, did not print and autograph that. So it was still being done by someone who was saying that they were acting for us because we were asleep. Okay, but ultimately, in order to get the message across that we get it about the money, we needed to print up our own, and then begin issuing it out. Because Congress is actually the only authority on printing money. We're the only ones who can print money. Because we're the Congress, we're the only ones who can print money. No one else can. No one else can do that. And anyone who did it was not lawful. Now, if we didn't rebut it, that has been the issue previously, is that whenever we saw that stuff coming through, we didn't put documentation and real money on the record until now. You know, we put real money on the record. So now, whenever you autograph anything, because it's the autograph of the heirs of the sovereigns that has made anything worth anything. Well, even with the Federal Reserve debt note, there was always a contract somewhere, whether it be we pulling it from an ATM. If you pull Federal Reserve debt notes from an ATM, and again, we can't tell you what to do. You can do whatever you want to do. We want to make that clear, that we're not saying whether to pull or not from an ATM machine. What we are saying is when you do it, know what happens when you do it. When you pull from an ATM machine, that means there's a contract somewhere, a banking contract somewhere. Unless you got the account using affidavits and terminated all corporate contracts, which all CEOs and all wealthy heirs, they all speak by affidavit. All of them. You will never catch someone that's pretending to be a CEO and all of that stuff. You would never catch them filling out a form online to do something. They send all affidavits they speak through their legal department. Okay? And I'm using those terms loosely. They never speak without going through their legal department. And many of us know that just because if we took anything, affidavits or anything, to someone that was thinking they were employing us when really we're the creditor and we're employing them, they would say, oh, this has to go to the legal department. Because they cannot speak to us unless we're the law, not anyone else. We're the law. So now, what are we doing about this, and how are we accessing our vast estate? That has been where we've been putting our study and everything. That's a $64 trillion question. Is, okay, we know that all of this is going on. What are we doing about it? I'm glad you asked. So what we're doing about that is this. Our Prophet Noble Drew Ali stated that we are going to leave the European here long enough to teach us how to govern. Because we're the ones who said whether they could be here or not. We are now speaking by affidavit directly to the custodians regarding specific issues in the territory so that the line of provision for us continues to open. It's already starting to open. Access to the estate is already granted because we granted it to ourselves. We must govern so that we can see where the provision regarding the buildings, the supplies, anything that we need will be coming from. Okay? So what does that look like? For example, we have a building here. We have several buildings that we have said, okay, now that we're, active here in the territories, all over our land, we're all active in our territories. We're saying, okay, we need structures, we need buildings, and we need supplies to continue governing in the way that we govern. How do we access the buildings? So in this territory, we have several buildings that we have said, okay, we're going to put a allodial title on the public record for the building. We're going to place a lien on any claims that any corporates that are claiming anything that has to do with the building, we will lien all of them, because corporations cannot govern property. Corporations cannot govern property. They can't hold it. They can't govern it. We have to do that. And after we've liened them and we've issued documentation, court action language to them, to the custodians, stating to the custodians that you are not a corporation, therefore you will not speak as a corporation when it comes to us and this property, this structure. So we did that here, and now we're saying, okay, we have the title. The custodians already know that we have our claim on this building, and that we need now to gain entry to the building. Well, before we gain entry to the building first, we need to know that the building is safe to enter, because we don't want our young heirs going in there and something fall on them, or the roof be leaky, or something like that. We don't want any of that, because we are competent heirs, and we know that, especially we know that we need to make sure that our heirs are safe, and they're going to be coming with us everywhere we go. So what do we do about that? What we do about that, and this is, many of us have started this already in the territories, but I want to make you all aware of this is how we're gaining access to the buildings and the structures. Any vacant buildings in your territory, or buildings that are not vacant, they may look like they're not vacant, but they're vacant when we say that that's our building. So any buildings in your territory, you first must put the proper documentation on the public record to include the title, the lien, do a sovereign exchange with Delarium for the property with another more, and then show proof that, okay, this is the building, I've claimed this building, and now we need to know about gaining access to the building and the status of the building. We need to know if the building is safe, what's the status of it, what's going on with it. So what we started doing is, the building down the street, the custodians in the office of City of Federal Way are acting out how the things that this building needs. They're acting that out, and we're watching them act it out in their the custodians in the office of City Council do the City Council thing, where they will issue a piece of paper for the building, and they'll say there's going to be a rezoning meeting for this building. So what do? We look at that and we say, okay, there's going to be a rezoning meeting on Zoom on July the 15th for this building, and they're going to be speaking about this building. Now, they know we've already put the claim in on it. They're the custodians. All they're doing is teaching us what we need to know about how to govern this building. So the latest thing that has happened with regard to our building is that there are 2 reports that we found out need to be due. Now, we have already shown competence at the zoning of the building. We looked at the zoning codes. We knew that that was something that needed to be done because we tuned into Zoom and we watched the city council, the quote-unquote city council meeting. It's really just the custodians. And they started talking about the property and, you know, the things that need to be done with the property and what the thoughts are on that property. And then they will say, okay, these are the notes from this meeting. Well, when we're listening to them talk about the property, if there's anything, any reports or anything that need to be done, we have been speaking by affidavit from our court with regard to that report or any information regarding that. And all we're doing is just showing competence at governing the building. So one of the reports was something about the fire marshal, because apparently there was some supposed some arson or something like that in the fire marshal. So what did we do? We actually had to speak to the custodian by affidavit and court action in the office of fire marshal and give them some some competent instruction and commands on what to do. We needed to see a report of the status of the building. And this is how we're governing and speaking into it and knowing what needs to be done with regard to the building. We're using the apparatus of government because we're the government. We're using that apparatus and we're watching the custodians, and we don't go and attend those the meetings. We just watch online. Why don't we go and attend them? Now, some Moors feel like they should go and attend them. Okay, if you feel like you should go, we can't tell you what to do. I don't go to those meetings because those meetings are not, from my perspective, I'm governing the meeting. I'm not going there to be part of the public because I'm not the public. We are not the public. The state is not the public. The empire is not the public in this particular capacity. So I don't go and say, oh, I have a statement that I'd like to put on the record about the building. I don't feel that's necessary. We speak by affidavit. So I speak by affidavit. There's a report now where we are in the process, because it takes more than just putting a title and all of that on the public record for these structures. It takes more than that to govern them. And that's what we're being shown, is how to govern them fully and completely, so that we are responsible heirs as we move into the structures. And so that we can get anything fixed that needs to be fixed, because we have the entire apparatus of our sovereign state to get things done, and the custodians are saying, okay, this is what we need. So the last information that we received, and I didn't even, well, I should have known that they had our email address. It's seemingly out of nowhere, I got an email in the email, and it was an update on what was needed for this building. There's a couple of reports that need to be done, and those type of reports tell me that, yes, we've secured the building, but now we have to show, there's one of the reports is a draft development report, a draft development report. So I Googled it because I'm familiar with reporting, and most of us are in some form. Because it doesn't have to be an engineer's report. It's got to be a report that shows a level of competence. So when you look at a draft development report, a draft development report just talks about the plans for the building over time. And then you know, some of the buildings, like there's a building that may be used for a hospital for birthing our heirs. They're going to need a personnel report, a staffing report. What is a staffing report? A staffing report is a report that says, based on this size of this building, we're going to need 4 inventory people, 2 managers, and 1 accountant, and 5 security guards, because it needs 24/7 security. So what are we doing? We're creating jobs for our people. We're creating jobs for the Moors, including the sleeping Moors who don't even know they're Moors. And they're wondering, why is all this craziness happening? And why are they trying to tell me that I need to get a shot and all of this stuff? Why is all of this happening? They're asleep. They don't know that it's about them. Some of them got let go and lost their jobs during that time period. So they still don't know, but they're qualified. What are we doing? We're doing the same thing that the custodians, such as those that were claiming to create jobs. They were saying, oh, Bill Gates, he created 10,000 jobs, you know, la, 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 la. That's our job now, is to create jobs on our vast estate so that our estate is governed properly. We have enough Moors to govern the entire estate, and we have enough subjects and custodians to do it. We've been doing everything anyway. We've been in management. We've been in finance. We've been doing budgets and draft reports and staffing reports and things like that. Many of us have been contracting officers and things like that. We've been aerospace analysts. We've been, you know, pilots and construction owners of construction companies and things like that. We've done all of everything. There's nothing we have not done, and that's why we all get the big Q. The big Q. What's the letter Q stands for qualified. And so whenever you saw that big Q deal going around where they were saying Q said this, Q said that, all they're doing is telling the citizens, okay, they're qualified, so some changes are coming, so get ready. Okay? Anything that we need, okay, we'll get to the questions in the chat in just a minute. Anything that we do, we have already done. So we're not doing anything new. There's nothing new under the sun with us Moors. Anything that we need with regard to the buildings and things, what we do is, remember back about maybe 6 months to a year ago, I was saying that the way that governments get what they need, what they want on the land, and get the land, because we don't need it, we're government, and so we want to do that competently. The way that we get what governments are due in order to properly govern is by appropriations. Governments appropriate the things they need. So, for example, we did an appropriations on the cell phones. Well, the way that the appropriations process is going from start to finish, because it's not finished, it's not a finished process. It started properly, but it needs to be finished. What's the finish of that? Use the apparatus of government and appropriations and actually speak into it. So in your territories, at your territories, Moors, we need to start paying close attention to what's going on in the territories in terms of, for example, quote unquote, city council meetings, legislative meetings, legislative sessions that the custodians are acting out for us, because that's all they're doing is acting out and showing us how to speak into something by affidavit, and they know how we speak. We speak by affidavit. That's how they know what to do. The affidavit is specific. All law is specific. Here in this territory and in many of the other territories, when the Moors start speaking by affidavit to the custodians and giving them competent commands, we're seeing the results on that immediately, where they go and do as commanded. And what are they doing? They're just showing us how to do it. If we say that there's a no parking sign in a place that we feel we should be able to park, then we speak to that by affidavit and say, this should be removed. But you can't say it should be removed and not put some lawful something in its place. Okay? And we're governing things that are much bigger than just parking, because people need to eat, especially with this transition continuing to take place. So, for example, the building down the street is going to be a distribution. It's going to be a storage and distribution center where people can come and get what they need, such as food boxes and things like that during this transition, as this transition is happening. They can get sea salt if they have some issues where health is concerned. They can get, natural minerals and resources there. That's the main purpose of the building, is to be able to store and to tribute to the heirs that which is their rightful inheritance. So we are looking at these processes that are going on and that the custodians are acting out. Those who are interested in banking, just go online and see if you can find banking meetings, banking committee meetings, or corporate shareholder meetings, or things like that. When you see those, pay close attention and then start sending notification to them along with a lien and the fiduciary document and things like that, okay? And a copy of the constitutions for your territories and things like that, so that you can start speaking competently to what's going on, because that is how the transition is happening, where the handoff of the responsibility of governing, we're dictating that. We're all dictating that. We claimed some buildings, and the minute we claimed the buildings, it went on the agenda for the custodians in the office of city council, and they began to put information out that we could see and that we could speak to. So when I'm doing my postmaster duty, my postmaster general duties, which is a military function of our government, I take my, and we're peacekeepers, so we're, military for us does not mean the same thing as when I was in the Air Force. It's not the same. When I'm doing postmaster duties and delivering the documentations, I just deliver the documentations to the custodians in the office of city to tell them whatever it is that is necessary in order for me and for us to properly govern the properties. And what we're really doing is making a blueprint. This is a blueprint for what we're doing. Each and every building is going to have to go through the same process. And one thing that our ancestors said when that they told the custodians, that they said, when the heirs wake up and they start speaking competently, then they can access buildings, domiciles, and all of that. But if they're not speaking competently and they haven't done the money changer thing, they can't have the stuff until they do. So the custodians they keep acting, they keep doing this acting so that we can pay attention to what they're doing and then speak to it. Those in the territories, and there's no limit on what you can speak to. Whenever there is a court issue in the territories that I feel prompted to, in my spirit, to speak to, I'll send an affidavit and put the law on that court case. I'll speak to the constitutionally inferior courts about a case, and I will render a verdict based on what I've seen, on the evidence that's been presented. This is going to be necessary because we're going to be moving into full dominion over the estate, and we have to know how to do that. Dominion and stewardship are similar. A steward is one who's watching over things until the heirs come. The heirs have dominion. We're going to be doing the same thing that the stewards were doing, except we have dominion over all of it. So we need to be competent to do that, and we are competent to do it. But we have to pay attention to what's going on. So if you claim a building in your territory, just start paying attention to city council meetings, okay, custodians in the office of city council. They put all of them on YouTube so that you can look at it, see what they're saying, see the process of governing that building or those structures, and then speak to whatever it is that comes up in the meeting. If they say, oh, we were supposed to have a meeting on this, but we didn't receive the staffing report, then you go ahead and do a staffing report and get it to the custodians so that you put the law on the public record about staffing. And it needs to be on Moorish government letterhead by court action. That's not an approval process. All it's saying is, custodians, we accept our estate this way. We accept for value what we're seeing. And this is how it's going to be governed. And as you do that, just keep watching, because they're going to be, over time, you will see access being made clear. And again, access comes from us. They can't even use it without going through us. That's what this is about. When we put a lien on something, that means, okay, all commerce regarding that property is stopped. And now we're going to engage commercially with regard to the property, which we've done. And then they said, okay, the custodian said, okay, we've received these documents, so we have to throw whoever it was in there unlawfully occupying. They had to be out of there, and they were out of there in 10 days or less. And since that time, I've been watching, and the ancestors have made it very clear to me that if I continue to pay attention, the building is ours. We know that. But we have to know how to govern it. So they said, okay, just start watching. Because I'll tell you this, Morris. Once I did, and we do this, we've done this sometimes in the past, where we'll do a lien on something and create the title to it, and then we'll see them put up a sign on it or something like that. And then we're thinking, well, they just gonna keep going on past my lien. No, they're not going past your lien. They're saying, okay, we got your documentation. Now, there are some things that need to be done in order for this structure to be made safe. You have to know how to govern it before you get in it. You have to know how to call the resources forth. If there's a fire in your domicile, you're not going to go back into citizen status to get some assistance. You're going to use your governing authority and you're going to speak into that process from your governmental position. Okay. And so they'll, we will send the documentation and we'll slap a lien on something and we'll say, okay, that's our building right there. Well, then you'll start seeing them try to signal you to govern it. Whenever you see them putting things up like that, they're just signaling, okay, speak to this, please, because we know we can't use it because you put a lien on it. Now you're going to have to learn how to govern it. So, or remember how to govern it, because again, we taught them everything they know. Now it's our turn to remember how to do it, and we have the custodians to do their part in that. Just like our prophet said, leaving them here long enough to teach us how to govern is what's happening right now. It's in full swing. So we should be speaking to the things that are going on in our territory. We must speak to each event in our territory, especially with regard to properties and with regard to any crimes. The things that we're seeing going on in our territories is just them signaling, saying, we need some government because you all are the government, you're going to have to speak to this stuff. So they're trying to prompt us to send the affidavits and speak competently, quote the law, and then elevate any city codes and state codes and statutes and public laws. You can cherry pick those and then elevate them and say, okay, this is the law. It's a code and statute when they did it, but it's the law when it's coming from us because we are the law. So everything, and it's coming from our court. So Morris, what I'm seeing also is this is the way we're going to be able to get the supplies and everything that we need. We must be, I'll just say this, we must be ourselves in this process. We must be ourselves in this process. Okay? Because there has to be a difference between us and the custodians. We are the living state, and they are the custodians in our living state. They're living custodians. But if we approach it trying to be friendly and nice, and instead of just quoting the law, then there may be attempts to be, that corporate stuff will come forward, and we're not having that. That cannot be. So always demonstrate at the level of your overstanding as we move to through this transitionary period, because that's where we are. Everything is being transitioned to us. This is the largest transition of wealth ever in history, ever, in the history of the earth. Our state is worth more now today than it ever was. Number one, because we're on it. And then number 2, 3, and 4, because of what's on it and what has manifested and how it's growing and all the natural resources and all of that. That stuff is secondary and third and fourth and fifth compared to the fact that we're here. So it's going to take the 2 reports that I'm going to be doing over the next 2 weeks are it's going to take me a minute to do them, but I'm looking forward to doing them. And if you need, if anything comes up like that, for example, a staffing report, and you feel like I don't even know what a staffing report is, just Google it. It will come up. An example of one will come up. And then all you have to do is be willing to tackle it. And knowing that yours does not have to be as in-depth and all of that as the one that you see, you just need the basic template for you to do. And then Put that thing, put it on government letterhead by court action language, by affidavit, and then deliver it or send it, whichever you prefer. Make sure that it's gotten in a timely manner. These two reports that I'll be doing over the next, few days and weeks. The next meeting on the building is going to be sometime in August, right after my solar return. My solar return is August 3rd. So I'll probably be working on that day because I think the next meeting is the 5th or something like that. But if I can get them done before then, I'll get them done before then, so I can turn up a little bit for the solar return. But I'm going to get them done and get them there in a timely manner so that the custodians have time to look over it, and then they can have the meeting. I'll watch the meeting either the day of or the day after or something like that, and then whatever comes from that, I'll speak to it again. And once we have properly addressed each and all of the issues with regard to the building, then the resources come in to fix it. Now, when we do staffing reports and things like that, all we're saying is how many moors or how many of people, because we're not limited to any one group of people. Anyone can work for us on our territory, on our land. It's always been that way. So the staffing report doesn't necessarily have appellations or names on it. It just has positions on it. So, and then those positions are spread out over a 12-month period, and then you just tally up. For example, if you have 5 people and they all make $50,000 a year, or $60,000 a year, which is going to be $5,000 a month for them, then you already know what your monthly budget is going to be in order for those people to work. So staffing reports generally go that way, and the reports and things that we're doing, because what we're really doing also we're doing a whole bunch of things at once. They used to say killing 2 birds with 1 stone, but I don't like that language. We're covering so many bases just by 1 or 2 reports. What we're really doing also is we are accepting the request for proposal that they've put out. When you talk about accepting for value, this is all a part of that process too. Because you can accept a building for value, but you still have to know how to govern that building. And I'll say this more, it doesn't matter if you didn't graduate from high school. You can still govern the buildings. You can still govern. In fact, you must still govern. The mandates are the same for all of us. I know of some Moors who, and in particular, I have Moors that I consider my consuls. I go to them for information, advice, consul on things, and not all of them graduated from high school even, but that their activated bloodline makes them so sharp it's not even funny. And they were so sharp that the schools couldn't really hold them. They were bored, so they dropped out. And they just did study like we're doing now. And that made them so sharp that, they began doing things internationally and traveling and doing all these things. And nobody ever knew that they didn't graduate from high school. They didn't need to, because high school would have spoiled that natural knowledge for them. So we all have responsibility to do it, and we have no excuses. There can be no excuses. So I want to address some of the questions in the chat. Let's see. It says, how do we get a copy of the notes? Empress Danielle, which notes are you referring to? Are you referring to notes, or are you referring to real money like dollarium? Both. Okay, so dollarium, Empress, anyone in this meeting can forward dollarium to you. They just need your email address. Okay. With regard to United States notes, that is something that we as a body and we as the Congress are going to begin looking at and implementing. And again, keeping in mind that when we start printing, and we're gonna appropriate that so that everyone can use it. That's gonna be appropriated. And we're gonna use the apparatus of our sovereign state to do it. Okay, so it's gonna be more of the same. We have to put some things in place first before we can begin printing United States dollars. We have to make sure that storage is available. We have to have vaults. We have to have all of that stuff has to be done, and that's what we're working on right now, is being competent at the structure, at getting the structures, so that we can continue to move in the proper way, competently, safely, securely, and with greater speed and efficiency and professionalism with regard to what's coming. Okay. I know that the resources are already there. Our job is going to be to begin speaking to those resources, which we've already started that. Speaking to the resources here in this territory for us just looks like us. Again, watching the process with regard to the things that concern us, because everything concerns us really, but we've talked about the building, and the building is still, they're just waiting on us. They're just waiting on us. Empress Danielle, Empress Rima says that they could send you the dollarium. So you can inbox each other in the chat your email address, Empress Danielle, and Empress Rima can get that to you. Okay, because there is a way to inbox your specifically to each other without everyone seeing your email address if you don't want people to see it. Okay, and that way you can get the dollarium. The United States dollars, and we've known about United States dollars for a while. We first needed to print our own national currency as a state and as a nation. We needed to do that. It had to come from us. And now we have to have something that earth-wide can be exchanged where everyone recognizes it. And when I say recognizes it, they recognize dollarium all over. I was just on a call this week with the UK and with Africa, the other Africa, and they absolutely, they know all about dollarium. And that's why they were connecting with us, is because they want to tie into that. We have to have a in the chat, is the United States Treasury number the same across the board? Yes, we get to determine that, and we've already put things on the public record with regard to the United States Treasury. We've already opened it. Okay, so the sovereign original Treasury is open. Okay, that belongs to us, and it is actually the same Treasury that was open by our ancestors since time immemorial. so that all of the nations of the earth can take their national currencies to the Treasury, because again, everyone was tied to this Treasury over here on this landmass, because they all come from us. So we said, okay, get your national currencies printed up, and when they get their national currencies printed up, they can then, and everyone there agrees that that is the national currency that they want to use, just like we've all agreed that the dollarium is what is our national currency. And so with us agreeing that that is the national currency for us, then as this United States Treasury piece comes about, we'll be able to interchangeably use what comes from our Moorish sovereign dollarium and United States notes. So that is basically what I wanted to put on the public record about the difference between Federal Reserve notes and United States notes. United States notes were actually backed by substance. It had a substance. Okay. Empress Danielle, thank you so much for your questions in the chat. I appreciate that you're actually slowing us down and having us to because we say things and we speak so quickly as if everyone understands them, and that's not always the case. And we don't want to lose. We want to keep everybody informed about how we're going about this. How can you do the process with another more with regard to the court actions and the exchanges? So the way that you'll do the process is you get with another more via email or electronically or in, face to face if you want to do it face to face. And you will do an exchange because both of you are the Treasury and both of you are the bank. So that exchange needs to be done where you send dollarium in the proper amount showing what the exchange is for, where everything is located, and all of that. And you do it by court action, and then that more will respond back to you by court action saying, we affirm this exchange. And then the two of you will and you, Empress Danielle, will send that affirmation. You can just print out the emails of you and the Moor doing the exchange between one another. And then you want to notify the custodians in the office of that a court action has been done on that property and a sovereign exchange has taken place in our national currency, and you and create a lodial title to it. Does that mean you can go straight there? No, because there's still some other things, and this is what I'm saying about start paying attention to, all of us, start paying attention to when we claim a property, start paying attention to what comes up on the public record about that property so that we can speak to it competently. Because there are some things like we may have chosen a property not knowing that the property is sitting on a fault line, or not knowing that the property has some structural damage or something like that. So we then have to start looking at, okay, let's start pulling the inspection reports and things like that on the property, and because we have to be competent at all of this. And whatever it is that and don't worry about missing anything about the property, because the ancestors will let you know. They'll have things to come up on the screen that you need to know about properly governing the property. Our job is to do our due diligence and ensure that we're watching the custodians and making sure that, okay, they sent out something, and they may not send it specifically to you. Just watch, and then if there's something you need to speak to it. If they say, oh, this property, on the public record, they may just say, as you're looking at tax assessor records, there may be something in the tax assessor records that you need to speak to. For example, if the place is being taxed, then you automatically know that you're not taxed. And that's why you do Empress Danielle, that's why you would do the transaction, the exchange in dollarium, because they can't tax dollarium. That's our national currency. Okay, and that's why you want to notify the tax assessor. Just send a copy of what you've done to them with a copy of the dollarium with your autograph on it, showing that real money has been exchanged for this property, and that you have the title. You're not going into the tax assessor and filing anything with them. All you're doing is sending it or delivering it to them, and this is just notification. That's all you're doing, is dropping it off and letting them know this is notification about that property. Okay, and then you go back and you do your study on the property, the condition of the property, or anything like that. And if you don't know the condition of the property, then look at who was doing business as realtor previously, and send them an affidavit stating to put the property report on the public record. But generally, you can find that without even having to send them an affidavit. You can find a property inspection report on the public record. So this is how governing things is manifesting itself. Is we're speaking into it, and the custodians are doing exactly as commanded. And we're speaking competently, because see, this is where the pieces is being put into place. Okay, we're not at war with them. The only time there is any confusion is when they're pretending to be a corporation when they're not a corporation. They're custodians in the office of the CEOs. And who are the CEOs? We are. We're the mayors and the governors and the president and all of that. We're all of that. We're the secretaries for sovereign state. So, and in all of the, there's not a job title on this land that we do not hold. And everyone that's in that job title before we get there is a custodian in the office of that title, even if they're a janitor or and again, we respect the janitors because they keep everything clean. Even if they're a janitor, they're not a janitor, they're a custodian in the office of janitor. We're the real janitors because we know how our estate should be. We're the real CEO, just like we're the top of the everything. We're the all. Everything is us. Those offices cannot be foreign offices. They can't be held by foreigners. And that's why we say to the custodians, all rise and stand and remain standing. Because when you stand them up, it's the same thing that was happening in fake courts. In fake courts, when they would say, all rise, and someone with a black robe would come in there, all they were doing was attaching themselves to you and saying, okay, now you're a U.S. corporation. That's all they were doing was saying, we only see corpses and corporations in this place here. That's what they were saying. And they would deal with everyone the same, corpses and corporations, unless you were one of their children corporations, corpses. So with what we're doing, we are the all, and everyone else is a custodian in that office. And it's as if we all work from home, and we're governing from home. That we have a home office at home, and we're crafting our affidavits and working at our table, and and we're speaking into those things as we're transitioning now into the structures competently and safely. Because it's by way of the structures that everyone is going to be able to get what they need. Okay? It's by way of us moving this way that those who need food, those who need domiciles and resources, because see, as we move into the structure, we're also going to be tapping into resource, just databases, basically, you know, food banks and things like that. Well, who's the food bank? We are. Everyone else is a custodian in the office of food bank. We have to make sure that everyone on our land not just survives, but thrives and does well and prospers. And that's what we're doing now, is moving into that, where governors and president and all of those offices are concerned. Listen carefully, Morris, because we got to do that too. And mayor and all of that. We have to look at what it takes to put your hat in the ring and say, I'm running, quote unquote, for mayor, but it's not really running for mayor. And then you do that by affidavit, and whatever the process is that you look up, you do that, you declare that that is what you're doing, and then you notify, okay? Because we have to do that too, because again, that's how everyone's going to be fed and get what they need, but we must remain in our proper status to do it. And then anywhere where there is something about quote unquote U.S. citizens, we're the original United States. That's why we have it at the top of our letterhead too, because we're the original. And what we've done is properly stated that. And by stated, I mean we have put on the public record that no hypothecation of us shall exist, none. We're the original. We did it in red first in all lowercase letters, and then we speak in blue, okay? So apparently I have missed, let me just see. Just a moment. Morris, I appreciate that you're not easily distracted. Both of the emails. Okay. Thank you, Empress Rima and Empress Helen and Empress Danielle and Empress Rose. Is the United States Treasury number, yeah, the same across the board? We answered that. We responded to that. Okay. Are there any questions? I'm going to open the floor, or the table rather, because we don't meet on the floor. We meet at the table. Let me just clear a few things up here first. Just one moment. Let's see. Okay. We will open the floor, the table. Okay. More.
Why are you still paying taxes on your place?
If you have any questions, you can *6 to unmute with regard to anything that we've spoken of at this point. And again, we're working our way through and up so that the resources are properly obtained and allocated out to us in a safe and sovereign manner. Okay, that is why we're doing what we're doing. Is that taking a while? It's taking a while to, you know, where some are concerned. It is, and you know, this is a process, Morris. We can't say it's not a process. It is a process. But that's why we're here. So everyone, and I'll say this because I had this conversation with one of our, with one of the heirs today, with regard to, you know, they were mentioning that Moors are suffering and they're, you know, they need something now, and so on and so forth. We hear and we feel the pain that we have been going through, because we've been through that pain. You all know how we've been through, you know, POW demonstrations and policy enforcers and all. We've been through all of that. Okay. The pain is not minimized. We feel it. We know. We feel it. Okay. We've had to eat ramen noodles through this process, you know, just like anyone else. We've had to sacrifice. We've had to do without. All of us have been in that space. So that has not been relegated to just one or two Moors who are suffering. It's been us as a nation, because when one of us suffers,
so basically you're telling everybody that your demonstration on First Avenue failed.
We have been through those things. And so what we're saying now is we must be competent so that we never end up in that situation that we're coming out of now, that we and our heirs don't have to deal with that situation any longer. Okay. So the way that we do that is to take our time and do it correctly now, because I've seen Moors attempt to take shortcuts sometimes, and not most Moors. I'll say this: most Moors are they already know. We already know that this is we're learning how to govern here, and that while we are learning to access the things that we need, we have to just sacrifice. The ancestors are making sure that people are not starving. We've not had a single Moor starve through this process. Have we all had, you know, a $500 meal every day? No, we haven't. No. But that's okay in terms of, and I don't mean that's okay. What I do mean is that making the sacrifice is more than worth it, because the entire estate is making itself available to us. We just have to keep our eyes up and keep doing what we're doing. Some Moors have had loved ones who have left and departed, you know, said, I'm leaving because you just own that stuff, and I don't see nothing coming in. You know, some have had to deal with that. And, you know, if I were to say that we get that, believe me, we get it. We get it. We have to stand, and we have to continue doing what we're doing right now, which is moving into this transition where we're getting the competencies that we need so that we never have to deal with that again. Is it taking some sacrifice? Sure, it takes sacrifice to do it. This is a transition we're coming out of. And fortunately for us, our ancestors are not going to let anything ill happen to us in terms of, you know, mishaps and things like that, where people, you know, no one's going to starve. We have to be willing to sacrifice so that we can stay focused on governing, so that 2 and 3 generations from now, we don't have to worry about this. It's a transition. Yes, you know, there are some things that Moors are taking their time getting out of, and there are some Moors who are still contracted. We cannot tell Moors what to do. All we're doing is going ahead and doing the demonstrations and putting the demonstrations on the public record and moving forward, and then sharing the information from our demonstrations, okay? So,
Islam.
are there any, yes, Islam.
Islam Empress, this is Marquel Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to know, because I've linked my bank, maybe Federal Credit Union, but it's been 13 days. I'm waiting for my merchant. I'm waiting to see different results on my online banking account.
Mm-hmm.
I actually linked them on the 24th of June, which is my birthday. So 13 days, I was able to go into the branch.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not going to have them make a creditor card for me. So, you know, I wanted to know, I have emailed the government, you know, with my old debit card information and things like that. But I wanted to know, how long do you think, without me just waiting, how long do you think it'll take for my, at least for me to see different results in my new Federal Credit Union account?
I don't know how long it will take for you because I don't know what your demonstration looked like. I will say this, though, that your account will not stay the same.
Right.
It won't stay the same. Do I know how long it's going to take? I don't know the particulars of it. I know this. I'll just tell you what the stats were on how long it took me to see changes on mine. It took 3 months to see the first change, which the first change was once I had leaned every bank that I was doing anything with. Once I leaned them, about 3 months later, I started seeing debits went from being black to red. So they went from being debt to credit. I saw that. And I reported that back to the boards. But I hadn't given them any instruments or anything like that. And then over time, what I have seen is that there's no ability for any frauds or anything like that to do anything adverse with regard to the account, either of the accounts. So when sovereign credits come in, because my account is denominated in sovereign credits, it's not denominated in Federal Reserve notes, debt notes. And how did I do that? I just put a termination of corporate contracts on the public record and said everything that has to do with us is lawful. So now when ones and zeros and digits go into the account, it's not Federal Reserve notes, it's sovereign credits. So I take the card that I was taking the card that they issue and swiping that card at the grocery store and different places like that. And I'm using sovereign credits, although I'm using the card that they issue while we do what we're doing with regard to our merchant cards and things like that. We have to put that in place so that we don't have to use their stuff because their stuff is not lawful. That's what this transition is all about. Okay, so hear me out, Moors, and this is what I'm saying about there's 3 ways that can be looked at. The first way is for Moors that have bank accounts. If you got the bank account by filling out their form, which most of us did, because we've had our bank accounts for years, many of us, then it's considered a citizen account that's doing Federal Reserve business, Federal Reserve debt note business, okay? Then what do is we declare our nationality. We wake up and we realize, okay, we got to terminate all corporate contracts and make sure that whoever it is knows that this account is not a Federal Reserve debt note account. It's a sovereign account. And then after that, while it's being a sovereign account, you're still using the card that they issued. Except you're the ones and zeros that's being transferred is sovereign credits and not Federal Reserve debt notes. And then the final step of that, and this is where we will see the biggest change, because your question is about change. When do you see changes in the account? You actually have to be competent to send the changes because you're the CEO. What does the CEO do? The CEO does not wait for them to change anything on the account. The CEO will send a statement. For example, when I deposited $100 million in lawful money into my Navy Federal account, I sent. First of all, I did a spreadsheet of the account because the original account is with me. It's not with them. And when I say the original account, yes, that account was there that where I can go online and look at it, but I can also send them a link to my online Navy Federal account where I'm doing my transactions with the $100 million. And I say to them, this is notification that this is what's going on with my merchant account.
But how would you?
I'm telling them what the changes are. Will you see that in your account? I don't know. I'm not sure. It depends on what your affidavits say and the instructions and the commands that you give them. Now, I will say this. They are not competent to record numbers that large. Their system isn't even set up for 6 and 9 digits. It's not. When corporations like Walmart and all of those, when they were doing business with banks, doing banking business, they didn't go, see, there used to be a merchant window, right? Whenever merchants would go in with large amounts, big bags of cash, 150,000 and whatever, they didn't type that into a computer and give them what they give us, something showing that there's 150,000 in there. They would give them a handwritten receipt. They would have these deposit slips that they gave. And when they give you a deposit slip, they just write in the amount. They didn't print anything out. They would just write it in because their system is not set up for that many digits. It's set up for banking, for average citizen banking. It's citizens who set the system up. So what are we doing? If you want to see changes in your account and your expectation is that they make the changes, then that's not necessarily the right expectation.
Right,
because your expectation based on your knowledge and your competence is you get to say what's happening with that account.
Right.
Your documentation determines that. And then what you do is when you notify them, then you go and do, and then you notify, let's say you're going to get a conveyance or something like that. You speak to the conveyance the same way you speak to the bank, by affidavit, and you let the conveyance, the custodians in the office of dealer know that you, because you're the CEO of the dealership too, that you have commanded a conveyance and prepaid for it, just like we talked about. Has there been a sovereign exchange done? You can do that with any other more because both of you are the CEOs. One is the CEO of the bank, one is the CEO of the dealership. You decide. You get to decide that. And then you prove that a sovereign exchange has taken place. Now, where we have to do our homework on even anything like that, before I go there, my point being, we're managing and governing the account, not them.
Right.
We're just notifying them that this is what has taken place.
Right.
And when we notify them, it must be a competent exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So will you see that when you log in online? You'll see some changes over time. But see, what they have to do is when you send them documentation, they run it through a group, a think tank, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back probably about a year and a half, Grand Sheik Tashriq, they talked about that on one of his videos where they're looking at our affidavits and things that we're putting on the public record, and they're looking for ways around and under and over, looking for the loopholes and all of that.
Right.
Okay. So it takes a while for you to see any changes made on the account. It's going to take a while. Like with my Navy Federal account, it took, from the first time that I started leaning and notifying and things like that, I had to learn that it's the state that was speaking to them and not just me as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the state speaks to them, then they're the individual and we're the state, and we're saying this is what's happening with our account.
Right.
It took me a little while to gain that, to remember that it's the state mechanism that tells banks that tells custodians in the Office of Bank what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when you speak to them as the state, saying this is a state account, and this is what needs to be done with that. This is what has been done with that state account. And the number sequence is the same. You're the fiduciary for the state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because here's something that we may or may not see at this time with regard to your questioning, which is absolutely valid question. Because I had the same question. I had to do the demonstration so that I can come back and say, hey, Morris, this is what I saw on this account. When I sent them this notification, I saw this change. When I sent that notification, I saw that one. And then Morris started doing the same thing, and they would see those changes take place. So the account at Navy Federal will, in reality, what happens, and this is what happened with mine, the account exists. I can still sign in. But when I sign in, it says that I don't have any accounts in this section. What does that mean? That means that my account went from being an individual account to a state merchant account. Mm-hmm. And merchant accounts, we tell them what's in the account because we're the ones doing the spending and depositing. Mm-hmm. The government of China, and I'll just use that as an example, if they came here, it's probably, Susie and Bob, whatever their Chinese name is. Mm-hmm. And they're coming saying, we're the Chinese government. We have this account. Let's just send them what we did, what the quarterly deposits and withdrawals were, so that they have it for their record. And then anytime they want to do any exchanges, they say, well, we're banking with Navy Federal. They have a record of our deposits and our withdrawals. Mm-hmm. So we tell them what's going on with the account. That's the way the big,
right,
the high net worth people do. Mm-hmm. We're the state. Mm-hmm. That's where you see changes because you made the changes. Right. It's just like with a name change in judicial proclamation. We didn't need their permission to do that. Right. Our court said it, and then we notified them that this is done.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So to your question, yes, they do have to make some changes. We may not always understand why it looks like that. I knew it was going to be a merchant account because I know what a merchant account looks like. Merchant accounts have more than 10 or 15,000 in them. Merchant accounts have hundreds of thousands, millions, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that's where you will see changes, is when you make the change, and then you can publish the change that you've made. And that's why we encourage the Moors to use something like Google Sheets to manage to govern your money. Make a deposit into your account of $100 million in lawful money, and then notify the custodians in the Office of Navy Federal. If your account number is 123456789, then you send them something saying a merchant state account 123456789, which has the name of Pauline Denise Ritchie or whatever name the account is in, because again, you're not that name, you govern that name. You know, and you're the fiduciary for that. And you let them know that $100 million is in there, and that that $50,000 has been taken out for a conveyance. When we show that, they have no choice but to turn over whatever access is necessary.
Right. And docket, right. Yes, it has to be done. Will we see that when we sign on to a citizen account? Most likely not. But when we terminate corporate contracts and do the things that you've done, then it shows that an account is there, but you're the merchant managing that account. So when I go on to there, all it says is, hey, there's an account. You have access to the account. We're just waiting on you to tell us what's in it and what you spent. Right.
Yeah. So you tell them.
Okay. I got you, Empress. I appreciate that. Much love. Thank you so much. Islam.
Yes, Islam. Yes, Islam. The next step for Amy.
Islam. Oh. Yeah, so I'm looking at on the same topic.
I can't hear you, Empress. If you'll speak up just a little louder.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the special status deposit affidavit, and I'm just wanting to make sure I have the right numbers, because it was made for your Navy Federal Credit Union, and so I was wondering whether those are the numbers that you came up with, or was it the numbers that you made sovereign?
Those are the ones that I nationalized those numbers.
Okay, so the account number like 999, that was the, it was
yes.
Before it was the corp number, then you would, okay,
yes.
Got it. And then the other question is, I see the received and accepted. So did you? I don't know who Jean Claire is. Is that something we keep on the affidavit, or is there somebody else that's supposed to receive this?
So that came from when that is the custodian in the Office of Manager there. And when I did postmaster duties and I handed her the documentation, I said, if you could just initial right here, that'd be great. And she just initialed on my return receipt that she received the documents.
Okay. So, because like for my bank, I sent a lien to the bank. Let me see. I think I got one back I got a return slip back from the agent. Can that be used?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Then my other question was, I haven't found the correct video yet about, I read on I know we are the Library of Congress, but I read on what some of the duties are, but I'm trying to wrap my head on how they sort of fit in all this process. I'm noticing other Moors, they'll like add them to the paperwork. So I'm trying to understand what does that all mean?
So initially, all governments are the holders of their own documents. We put the Library of Congress, because first of all, you know, as you stated, we are the Library of Congress. What we're doing is those that are there are custodians in the office of the Library of Congress. So initially, there was a category, the AA222141A1 category. Are you familiar with that category?
I'm still learning, but yes.
It's the not taxed Moors, not taxed category that CM Bay registered with the State Department back in the early 1900s. And the State Department, not the IRS, but the State Department gave that number as a not taxed number, saying all Moors under this. And that's really just the number of the public laws. So if you look in the public laws under 222141 and 142 and 143 and 144, it starts talking about consular courts and consular venues. So with regard to anything that has to do with that category, Moors are notifying the the custodians in the Office of Library of Congress that those documents should be added to the records. Okay.
So
but ultimately, I'll just say this really quickly, Empress. Ultimately, we are still the holders of our own records. The custodians are there simply to show us how to do the things that we do. And if you send it to the Library of Congress, the custodians in the Office of the Library of Congress, that's fine and that's good and it's recommended. It's suggested, rather. Most importantly is to just put it on the public record, somewhere public, where you can find it and where others can find it. Okay, that's the most important, and that does not have to, we don't need fiat to do that. We don't need fiat to notify the custodians in the Office of Library of Congress of what we're saying. We just send it, and we generally send Delarium with those documentation. We send, I think they said it was $80 in Delarium. We generally send 80 Delarium with our documents, and just we're notifying them. That's all we're doing.
Okay.
Ultimately,
yeah. Yeah, no, I was gonna say, and I'm glad you added the thing about the recorder, because I had spent more because I'm working on. I had leaned an apartment that I still live there. I'm not domiciling there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was working on leaning them and everything, because I know they were getting ready to attempt an eviction or whatever. And the Office of Recorder sent me a military thing saying that he couldn't record my documents. You know, they were all black. First, he didn't really address me. He said, "To whom it may concern," so I know he knew, you know. And I hadn't done the court action yet. The court action was actually like the next day. So, yeah, but I remember, like, I was like, well, I'm the recorder anyway, so that's fine.
Well, let me say this about that. Generally, when they do something like that, see, subjects cannot speak directly to us. They cannot speak directly to us. If they're speaking to us, that means that they think that we're citizens, generally. So whenever they send something out, they say to something like that, "to whom it may concern." For example, an email that was received in the email box that I got said "to the interested parties." You know, because they don't have the capacity to type our sovereign appellations because we're the fiduciaries of all the letters. Okay? When we have the sovereign original trademark. That's what the fiduciary document says. We have the trademark, so they can't just put that on a piece of paper because it's ours, not theirs. And if they put it on a piece of paper, they're not talking to us. They're talking to their corpse that they created. Okay? Yeah.
Decapitated and gone.
Yes, they're custodians. They can't, you know. They can't say our sovereign holy name. You can't say the name of God. You can't say the name of God because the status has to be, you have to be God to say the name, the appellation of God, you know. And that's in the ancient writings. A lot of people don't realize that, but that's why the people that were doing business as fake Jews, they would never type the word God. They would put G and then an underscore and B, because you cannot say the name of God, the appellation of God. You can't. So, yeah, Empress. You know, the Library of Congress. All we're doing is the ones that are there. They're acting out how to do it. So they're showing us how to record the documentations and things. Ultimately, when we put it on the public record, that's what makes it so that we can reference it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Empress. Thank you for your demonstrations too, and also the other Empress. You know, your demonstrations. We have to do that, and this is the beauty of what we're doing is you all, like Empress. You're demonstrating, and Empress Danielle is demonstrating, and Empress Rima is demonstrating. We're all demonstrating and using the same letterhead and things, so that in each of the territories, they're just getting bombarded with stuff from our government. I love that, because that's where we're seeing the changes. And then the noble who asked the question, the noble Markel. You think the custodians in the Office of Navy Federal don't know that the Moors are awake? Oh, absolutely they do.
Yeah.
They know. They know who we are. Yes, they know who we are. And all they're doing now is saying, okay, is this a competent affidavit or no? Do they know that they are the CEOs? Do they know that it's their records that count and not any other record? Because see, banks they were acting as courts. All judges are bankers and all bankers are judges. They even say that like in the dictionaries with regard to the definition. If you look up bank, B-A-N-C, it'll tell you that that's a court. So they were doing court actions, and we were not doing our court actions back in our sleep, but we are now. So they have to do as commanded, but really what's happening is the transition is to sovereign banking is happening. Noble Markel and those who've done demonstrations where banking is concerned, all you're doing is manifesting the transition of wealth to yourselves. We're all manifesting this great transition of wealth. We get to say what our resources are worth. That's why they keep saying a revaluation and a reset, and revaluing the price of gold and all of this stuff, because they know we get to say what the value is of our money, our dollarium, our resources, and everything. Okay. Speaking of which, are there any other questions or comments? I want to show you one other thing really quickly about that.
Yeah, Islam. I just want to tell you something.
Islam.
Okay, someone asked about the changes in banking.
Mm-hmm.
So like Sister Light and Abbasi, we all have accounts with Navy Federal because I assume we all been in the military. So
Yeah.
when I opened my Navy Federal account, say 12 years ago, Navy Federal never had a trust account. But when we sent that affidavit to change the bank to a savings and trust account, now magically that the trust account appears now in Navy Federal. That was never there before. Now it is.
Yes.
Also, Navy Federal's colors are red. Now the color is blue on the website. All blue.
You noticed that, huh? I noticed that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as you see, when you send an affidavit that's confident, they're going to do what you tell them to do.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
I get back to the floor. Islam.
So that was Army
Who changed their colors?
Navy Federal. It's always been red. Since I took that account over back in the 2000, it was red. Now on the website it's blue. And it never had a trust account. Now it does. Because of our affidavits and our writs that we send to Navy Federal. And there's more than one more, because Sister Light has been hammering Navy Federal, Brother Abbasi, and I love sending Navy Federal paperwork.
They're custodians.
Okay, I'm giving back the floor.
Real Navy Federal, they're custodians in the office of. They have to do as commanded. Are they going to test the errors along the way? Sure, they do that. And we just keep proving that we're the nobility, period. You know, and we actually did one of these calls and pointed out how many of the companies, because we have been doing the work that we've been doing, they all changed their logos back to all lowercase letters or blue. I mean, like around here, the majority of, when you're going down the way here, majority of that stuff is in all lowercase letters, or it's in capitis diminutio minima in red, you know, because it's the capitalism. Now, I'll say this about that because I wanted to give a quick briefing on capitalism. Did you know that capitalism is in the Declaration for Independence? Capitalism is when you alter the records like they did back in 1913 and 1933, when all of the titles, the allodial titles, they represented an altered version of them and called them deeds and then put them on the stock market and started selling them all around everywhere. They're deeds, not the allodial title, because they can't sell no allodial title. So what did they do? They said, okay, we have control of these letters and this color ink. We're going to issue documents and make it look like we have changed all the deeds. All the titles. So they put it on their documentation, and let's say, for example, it would say the title was Pauline Denise Ritchie. What they would do is, once they did that corporate piece in 1871 and we didn't rebut it properly, they said, okay, we got them now. They said we're going to pretend to be the state. They're going to be just individuals. And so they did that thing where they pretended to change all of the titles to deeds and pretended to change all the living birth affidavits to birth certificates. They did all of that and published it like what we're doing today. They published it, and everybody was like, oh no, that's me. They're taxing my home, my domicile. And then, because we stopped using our own money and started using their military script and started paying them in military script whenever they said, oh, it's $2 is due, or $5 is due. It started out real small. The hypothecation started out real small. And because we thought, oh, well, it's just $2, we'll let $2 slide. We'll give them $2 a year on the title to this domicile. That wasn't even the real title that they were putting documentation out there for. But capitalism, we stopped talking about producing our own affidavits, because see, when you produce your own affidavit, nobody can capitalize that. Nobody can capitalize your affidavit unless you consent to them doing that. If you say, for example, with regard to documentation, If I want something done by the custodians at wherever, I'm not going to have a conversation with them and have them say, well, you know, we know you're a Moor, but if you'll just go ahead and fill out this form, we'll get it done. I'm not filling out a form. They know that we don't do their forms, because that's a form of government. It's not the real government. It's a form of government. They call it a form for that reason. So we're going to speak by affidavit and continue to speak by affidavit. And don't worry about calling me on the phone, because my affidavits speak for themselves. So capitalism is where whenever we let them craft the paper and we agree to their crafting, because their crafting is incompetent, then they said, okay, we got them. We have their consent. We can do whatever we want because they filled out our paper. And some Moors don't agree with that, and that's okay, but it happened. And let me tell you where they got that from. Let me show you where they got that capitalism and altering of documents from. Here in the Declaration of Independence, this is how they pretended to get out from under us. It says here, and I'll just start from the top because it's so important. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, which we are the United States for America, so that was already showing that there was hypothecation. When in the course of human events, and we're not human like that, we're the gods having a human experience. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Let me just stop there for a minute. Whenever you're hearing anything from custodians, this is what you're hearing. It is an opinion of mankind. It's not a court. It's not a command. It's not a requirement. It's not a mandate, a mask mandate. It's none of that. It is their opinion. It's not the law. It's only the law if we agree to it. And even then, if we agree and then we turn around and think, oh, wait a minute, that's not right, then we say, nope, then it's not the law. It's based on what we say. Okay? It's right there. They've been quoting this the whole time. Okay? And then what does it say? It says, first of all, it says they know that they are mankind, and then there's the laws of nature and of nature's God. That's where law comes in at. Who is the natural God? And who is mankind? Right there in our faces. And the opinion of mankind, and that's what we're doing right now with the custodians. We are watching them act out these things because they're custodians in the office of the city. We're the city. We're the gods of that, naturally, by natural order. And we're saying, okay, how do we, what are we doing here? Oh, this type of report needs to be done on each and every building. This type of report needs to be done. All we're really doing is filling the mandates where allocation of resources is concerned, okay? and the custodians, the opinions of mankind is what's going on. They didn't say it's the law that these reports be done. It's an opinion of mankind. Okay. When an opinion is given, it is up to us to say, okay, we respect that opinion, but this is the way we see it. Because this is the law. This is what the law says. Okay, right there. So now, what does it say? We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Does it say all men and mankind? Or does it say all men? Because see, in those first few sentences there, they're telling you who's who. They're properly identifying the parties. It's a court action. The Declaration for Independence is a court action. And all parties must be properly identified at the very beginning before you can say anything else. So what have they done? Properly identified the parties. There's 3 parties there. There's nature's God, there's mankind, and then there's men. Well, men is an all caps name. And yes, all caps are created equal. When they're created in our state, they're living property. Men are property of the Moors. Men are all caps names. That's why they say all men are created equal. They know that there's a difference between us and subjects. They know that already. That's and again, they put it right there in your face. There's God, nature's God, who is the natural gods of the earth. We know who that is. There's mankind, and then there's men. Okay? So now, what are they saying? It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, and again, they're going to be identifying themselves and us the whole time with in different ways, but still saying who has the authority. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That does not include property, because see, some people along the way changed it to life, liberty, and property. But that's not what this says. It says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Why? Because all caps cannot own property. Property belongs to the Moors. All property belongs to the Moors. All caps don't own the property. All caps occupies the property. And it must be a living all caps, created in the sovereign living state as creditor instruments. It's not the creditor, it's the instrument. We're the creditor. Okay? And here it says that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. The first men was in all lowercase letters. The second one it has a capital M. That's not by accident.
I just have one thing. So I think it's interesting. It says the pursuit of happiness. So it's like you can continue to look for happiness, like an endless search.
Yes, yes. Because we are happiness. Period. You can pursue happiness, but we are happiness. Just like we're peace and we're love and we're truth, we're light, we're freedom, and we're justice. We're all of that. We're all. We're the all. So they're saying life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay. that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government, now they've switched up and said we're not even talking about government right now. We're talking about a form of government. That whenever any form of government, corpses and corporations, becomes destructive at these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, not a new form of government, but new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. They're talking about capitalism here. Anything placed on the public record by a corporation in black ink and capital letters and their forms is a form of government. Look, it just is. That I can't even argue with anyone about that. It's right there in our faces. Anything put out there by them is a form of government. And in the bibliotheliotech, it says that they have a form of godliness without the power. Forms don't have any power. Affidavits do, though, as crafted by the heirs, by the government, and not by a form of government. So when it says that people, it's not saying corpses and corporations. It didn't even say men alter. It said people. It doesn't say persons. Who is we the people? Not we the mankind. We the people. Mankind, listen, we're not mad at them. They were modeling for us and showing us and teaching us how to govern by all the things they did. And all they did when they appeared to just overrun things and just do whatever they wanted to do, all they were doing was saying this is what sovereignty looks like. Except you all, when you're sovereign, you're doing it honorably. They also showed us what not to do as sovereigns, because we don't do underhanded foolishness and buffoonery. So, again, Declaration of Independence is a court action. And all we had to do was get on the public record like we're doing now and rebut it properly. They're telling you who they are, and they're also, because see, people say that the Moors are not even mentioned in the Constitution. They're not mentioned in any of those documents except the treaty. No, we right there. It says God. Nature and nature's God. It says the Creator. Now, when it says here, because see, again, it says that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That means whoever creates the all caps men, or again, the men in capitis diminutio minima, that is who is the authority on what happens where life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is concerned. And when they talk about altering, listen, they only existed on paper, so where are they altering anything? They're altering it on paper. Yes, it says supreme laws or God's laws. Listen, they're telling us who we are, and they're saying that anytime you Moors get tired of a form of government, that you will alter it all of you together will alter or abolish it. And you will institute a new government, not a new form of government. So they knew even then that it's about the real government and not a form of government. And that it says here, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form. In other words, we can alter or abolish it however we choose to do that, based on our own power and authority. As to us, shall seem most likely to affect our safety and happiness. So what did we do? We said, okay, we'll take that capitalism piece, since that's the platform, that the quote-unquote democracy that they were putting forth. That's the financial platform and the enslavement platform that they were using. Capitalism and democracy work together from their perspective and from ours. Except when we say democracy, it's in all lowercase letters. And if you look it up in the dictionary, you'll see one with a capital letter, and it's going to talk about them. And then you'll see one with democracy with all lowercase letters, and it's going to talk about how all the people govern together. They altered the way that word was written so that they could hypothecate and subrogate and pretend and act. It's like reading a script, and we're the director. And that's why if you call them a judge, you've altered who they really are. And you've changed them into something that they say, okay, she said I'm a judge, so let me start acting like a judge, until she alters or abolishes what she said. That is also jurisdiction. When you alter or abolish what's being said, you're invoking your sovereign jurisdiction. They only exist on paper. Let's get it straight. Only exist on paper. So where were they doing this altering and things? On paper. And then guess what? They said, okay, we don't know if the Moors, when they're starting to wake up, we don't know if it's going to be clear to them that we've been altering things. So we know that they all like going to church. So we'll just call that place up there where the status of their soul gets changed. We'll call that an altar. And we'll say, okay, if you want your soul, the status of your soul to be changed, you come to this altar. And we will put hands on you. And again, we love Christians. We're not mad at them. I grew up in a Christian home, but now I can see. And when I say now I see what was being done. I see what the rituals mean. And I'm not saying whether they're good or bad for whoever needs them, because there are, and again, Moors, we have to be careful with this, because there are Moors out there who did not know who they were, and they were, let's say, hooked on things, on substances and things, or living a certain way that was not conducive and healthy. And when they went to the church, they were able to live a better life, so that by the time they did wake up to more science, they would be in health and in their right mind to even recognize themselves. So there's two sides to everything. And that's why we don't criticize, anything, but we do point things out. We will point it out. And they were touching that pineal gland every time with the oil. In other words, we were being pointed the whole time to where our power and authority is. And then they were saying, okay, we'll just put someone in between them and their godness, so that they have someone else governing their godness, because they're not competent to know that they're God, and they don't know how to use their godness. So we got to put someone in there. between them and their godness. And then they put a legal code book called the Bibliotheliothek there, and they said, okay, don't teach them how to read it like it's legal, because if you show them that this is really a legal code book, they'll be able to free themselves. So don't show them from that perspective. Drill in their head that it's about something other than legal code book. Not just legal code book. It's ancient records that have been altered. Because we wrote that. We wrote the original, all of the original books of the Bible. We wrote them. And then Benjamin Franklin altered them to help them. And, you know, we're not mad at any of that, because all of that was to be made known to us so that we would know our own power. You know, so capitalism is written into the Declaration of Independence, where they say they're telling you, they identified the parties, and they tell you even how to set yourself free. They're saying, Moors, y'all got to govern because we're nothing but a form of government. And that we have the authority, and we're the only ones on the earth who had the authority to alter or abolish that monster. Many, many, many other, you know.
Hold on. I'm sorry.
Islam. Islam nobility.
My apologies, Empress.
Okay. Sure. Were you going to say something, nobility?
No, I was trying to mute the phone. I'm sorry.
Islam, that's okay. That's okay. So take dominion over that button, nobility. You have all the power and the authority. Take dominion over it.
Thank you.
So it says here, prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established. So you already know they're not talking about no 200-year-old anything when you're talking about us being millions and millions and millions and trillions of millions of years old. Governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. That means that no matter what, don't be changing the government just because you Moors have decided y'all want to use forms instead of affidavits. That's no reason to do that, because long-standing, long-established government should never be changed for something menial like that. In fact, we never were changed. We just needed to know that. All we're doing right now is standing and saying, we are who we are, and we've been that since time immemorial into perpetuity. It says here, and accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Mankind is accustomed to a form, and they don't have the authority to abolish anything. They're telling you that right there, that they cannot fix themselves, that they have to suffer until we stand up and abolish a form of government and start governing like we're doing. Mankind cannot right themselves. They can't abolish anything. Okay? And we just have to be, you know, keep doing what we're doing competently. I'm excited for us Moors because this time that we're at right now, this time is, first of all, it is the most peaceful time. Not only is it the most peaceful time, but the greatest transition of wealth is happening, And when we say transition, it's just all it's doing is we're taking the wheel. When they say Jesus take the wheel, okay, Yeshua take the wheel. Nothing new under the sun. No need to reinvent the wheel because we're the original. So all we have to do is look at what the subjects have put out there, and we must publish it. And that's why our prophet talks about publishing. Because they publish some things, our publishing of it just rebuts the corporateness of it. We make it real. That's why the constitutions and things being put on the public record by us are necessary. And one last thing, Morris, I found, some of you may have known this already. I did not know this though, that, you know, the banner of amity and commerce, each one of the states, when the states were allodial and sovereign, because see, that whole 50 corporate states thing is a hypothecation of us and what we did originally. When we were doing what we're doing now, which is governing the territories that we thought at one point were corporate states with political boundaries, our commercial banners for each one of the territories had the number of stars on it according to when we came into union with one another. So when Washington Territory came into union with the other territories, and we wanted to do, and we started out in union because we were actually first. That's why this is the only place that had a face on the flag, on the state flag. All the other flags don't have faces on them of a specific someone. But as the states became the sovereign states, said, hey, we're together. Their banner of amity and commerce, their banner for amity and commerce had the number of stars on it according to the order that they came into union with one another. So if Utah Territory came into union as and I'm just saying, because we can look it up, but I'm just saying for the sake of what we're talking about here, if Utah Territory was the 38th territory to say, hey, we're in union with the other states. We're a state and we're in union with the other states. If they were 38th, then their banner of amity and commerce would have the red and white stripes, and it would have 38 stars on it. And then if Idaho was next, Idaho would have 39 stars on it. Same banner, just the number of stars on it would tell us when each of the states came into being or agreed to be one, where commerce is concerned. So I've been looking at we get a hint of that though, Morris, when you look at the 13 quote unquote colonies, which by the way, the original 13 colonies was the Moors, and then there was a foreign hypothecated subrogation attempt and usurpation even on that. But the flag, the banner for the 13 colonies was 13 stars in a circle. Whichever state was the second state, then theirs only had 2 stars on it. It was a banner of amity and commerce with the red and white stripes, etc., etc. But they had 2 white stars on a blue field. And something that is interesting is that Washington District of Columbia Corporation, their quote-unquote district flag had 3 stars on it. So where was the first star? Where's the one with, what district had 1 star? What district had 2 stars? And what district, and then they had the 3. Well, we know what the other 2 districts were. The Vatican and London. Fleet Street in London. London's financial street was Fleet Street. Fleet is what you call a whole bunch of vessels, boats, a whole bunch of boats. So in more than one way, they came over here on a bunch of boats. Okay. And then in New York, the financial street where they came was 55 Water Street. And that's where all of the quote-unquote attorneys and all of that, all of their numbers were ran through there. So the number of stars on the banner for Amity and Commerce, and I say 4 because we're the original states, that will tell you when we started doing commerce together. So we just have to go back through and see what order did we start doing commerce together. Because the subjects recorded it, but they hypothecated the records. So we have to look at what they did and say, okay, this is where we came in at. You know, I think for Washington, it was 1849 or something like that. Or no, it's 1849 or something, 1889. You know, and that was, you know. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out about the banner for Amity and Commerce, is that each territory is, because see, we do commerce, that's a commercial banner. And so, and again, it's always going to be where the stars are first for us and the red stripes are last. Okay, so it's going to make it look like it was backwards, but it's really forward for us. And as we do commerce, because that's not the state flag, that's the commercial flag. And then the number of stars on it will say when we started doing commerce with one another and how that happened. Some states are wanting to have their own national currencies or state currencies. They have to just look at the Constitution on that one. You know, so we have agreed that, you know, by putting the constitutions on the public record and putting Delarium there, that we're federal. And we're city states and nation states, and that's not with a hyphen in the middle. So we get to make the call on that. We get to decide that, and we've already decided through a series of votes, and then the use of the Delarium. So I would encourage Moors, I would encourage you to, and even Moors who are with temples and, you know, Moors who don't necessarily consider themselves a part of what we're doing, you still are, but if you want to consider that you're not, okay, that's fine. You're welcome to use Delarium also. We will be happy to send it all, and it has made it all around the earth. So, and we're able to see that because we have so many others from other Moors from other territories who have, they're implementing financial processes because they know that the money has to come from us, and they're wanting to connect what they're doing with what we're doing, and we can do that. We'll find ways to make it work, you know. So. And we also want to welcome the new consulates that are coming on and the new government that are a part and parcel of us all around the earth. We get emails quite regularly. We just recently got an email, another email. We have our sovereign UK, United Kingdom Moors, Justice Consul and Justice Morley, and Empress Nadia. We're excited about you all being here with us, and we now have some other Moors from UK territory who want to open a consulate there, and they've actually they went ahead and opened it and said, hey, we opened the consulate, what do we do next? So we're meeting with them also so that we can provide any assistance, any further assistance that they need there, so we're excited about all that's happening. Our government is earth-wide, and it is continuing to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. It's growing very quickly. And I'm just grateful that, we are where we are and we're doing what we're doing. Moors, keep using Moorish government letterhead. Keep sending out your affidavits. Keep demonstrating, because the estate is ours. It always has been, and it always will be. We just need to continue to work on competently articulating that. Okay? And we're moving into that right now, where all the resources that we need are coming to us. They're presenting them, the resources are presenting themselves, and we have to speak to them competently. So that's where we are now, is navigating the process of getting into the buildings and opening up the lines of resource for all of us. So with that being said, are there any other questions or comments or wisdom or processes of any kind that anyone wants to share? I was going to go into alter and what that means, but we'll go into that at another time.
I also wanted to talk about the farming. So we had spoke about the farming.
Yes.
And writing something up as far as the migration and distribution. And I just wanted to get a better understanding of that. I don't know if this is the time.
Yes, this is a good time.
Okay.
So, Empress, tell us about what you're doing.
Oh, okay. Well, I farm.
Do you know how exciting that is? To you, it's probably, you're probably just used to saying, "Oh, I farm." We're excited about that.
Yes, I'm happy because food is seemingly essential.
Yeah.
So I have a couple acres or two, and land. I mean, as we already know, land is coming. But I went to school for environmental psychology before I woke up, and I'm continuing that now so that I can better my understanding of cultivation. But vegetables, fruits, livestock, mostly horses though, so we don't eat those. But yeah.
Beautiful, 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 and we're so honored that you're here, Empress. So with regard to the
you want me to write up something as far as seasonal, what
yes, whatever is on your heart to do, however you want to present that, Empress, because there are others in other territories who are going to need the knowledge that you have, and some form of a schedule on planting, when to plant and when to harvest, because that's one of the laws of the universe: seed, plant, and harvest. And so however you want to present the write-up of the seasonal things that are seasonal, and things that, when is the best time to plant certain foods, and how long it takes for them to grow and be ready to harvest. And some may say that, oh, that's information's out there. No, it's not out there we need to hear it from our own.
Right. Yeah. I definitely can put up something, or I mean, you have to give me time.
There's no rush, Empress. We got 1,000 years.
Just making time here.
Empress, may I say this? You're already doing the gardening and things. If you don't mind just recording, taking a few photos and then just saying this, I planted this date and this is what it looks like now, because that way your flow of activity won't be interrupted.
Oh yeah, so I guess since the week, since I woke up, it kind of was just an instinct that's been happening, and I just have a whole bunch of content that I wasn't aware of what was it going for, which is why when I saw what you had wrote, I was like, aha, that makes sense.
Yes. Our ancestors had this thing all planned out, Empress. Yeah. And we were doing things, just hearing that divine urge to go ahead and record. I'm so glad you did, because all it takes is your schedule won't even be interrupted. Just take a few minutes to put it together and publish it, so we can all look at it and see, and then use the information at our territories.
Okay, is there a way to, like, should I send, I can send the information,
yeah, you can send it to me.
People's email addresses. I'm not sure how people want to be contacted, but
yeah. So Empress,
I have like a website, but I don't know how like secure things. I haven't really gone through the security measures other than creating the platform myself, but I don't know how people are with doing that.
You know what, Empress, that is like a key. We would love to know the website address. I don't worry about website security, just because what are they really going to get away with? Nothing. Because
like you had mentioned, there's people that are still unaware of what's happening, but know there's something happening. So that's why I like to just provide options, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you want to say the name of the website here on this platform?
Well, I have the website already, but I haven't posted anything to it. But it's saphouse.org.
Can you spell that?
Yeah, I can put it in the chat. Thank
you so much, Empress. And we'll just wait for some content to be up there. And we're not too, I don't worry about security issues, because I already know who's really in control of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are, absolutely. And, I don't really worry about that. So SAPHOUSE.org.
Yes.
So we'll just be looking back.
Right now, that's just the page for attention purposes, but the bigger plan was putting it together first.
Will you keep us informed so we can look at it when you get it up and running?
Definitely will.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Empress, you'll be like, I'm glad I'm doing this, because light is not good with that. If you saw my garden, right now it needs some help.
I think that's the best part of it, is seeing that happen, because then you know somewhat what not to do the next time, because it didn't. Yeah. I didn't start like that either. So
yeah,
I still go outside and have certain things don't go the right way, but we aren't necessarily born knowing. There has to be some type of awareness.
Empress Rima says in the chat, the site is beautiful so far.
Oh, thank you.
I'm looking forward to seeing it, Empress, because we need as many more farmers as possible. And whenever I hear a Moor say they farm, all I keep thinking is they just said they're a pharmacist, because our food is our medicine. So, yeah. There's an empress in this territory who is an excellent farmer. Her appellation is Freedom. Empress Freedom is just, she can grow anything, I think, you know. We need as many as possible because your products, Empress, there are going to be the same thing that we're doing in this territory is going to be done in your territory also, where there will be a main place where people can come and we will put boxes together of the food that they can take with them. And the government will pay for all so that the people can eat. The government will pay you to do farming. We will subsidize your farming. You know.
I think I just went about it a different route because that's like, I mean, under the jargon, I guess that they compiled together like land grants, things of such. So I went through it with the organization aspect, but I never felt comfortable going through with the legal paperwork, and I started to realize how far I was making it without even showing legal paperwork, and I was like, okay, so this is complete legal.
Yeah.
But it's completely legal.
Yeah. Well, Empress, you can look at the legal documentation and then craft some affidavits that speak to whatever it is that's in the document in that stuff. See, they already know who you are.
Yeah.
They know already. And they know that you should be speaking by affidavit. They know we all should be speaking by affidavit. Some more find it easier to fill out the forms. Okay, I'm not bashing that. I'm saying that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to speak by affidavit because I can better express my will and my wishes by affidavit. That's really what affidavits are, is our living will. We will for this to happen and we will for that to happen. You know. And where there's a will, there's a way, always. So you can craft affidavits. Just take the form, whatever forms they are, take them, and then just craft an affidavit. And Empress, if I were in that situation where you're farming the land already, you have the acreage, you just haven't finished, there's some other additional things, paperwork and documentation. If that were me, I would absolutely pull all of their documentation together, and I would develop a general template that I could share with everybody else who wants to do that. So you'd be assisting yourself and saving yourself, because see, they know legal is not lawful. They know that.
Yeah.
So they'll present a bunch of documents and paperwork. All you have to do is competently express those same documents by affidavit. And then put those documents with your affidavit, and you don't have to fill those documents out. You don't have to fill those out. You just put the blank ones with your affidavit and say, here you go. We speak by affidavit. They know that because they know the maxims of law. The maxims of law say an unrebutted affidavit stands as law, not an unrebutted form. An unrebutted form, there's no such thing. They're rebutting the form by giving you a form in the first place.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So we're grateful that you're here, Empress, because we're going to learn so much.
I can't wait.
Yeah. And Morris, as you're for all Morris, you know, as your giftings and things are manifesting, your gifts will make room for you. I would encourage you to just start doing, you know, even if you don't want to be in front of the camera, explaining what you're doing so that other Morris can get the information too. I would encourage you to just take photos of it and post it on social media and just give a brief explanation of what you did. It won't impose too much on your workflow because you're still doing the work that you've been doing, but you'll be sharing the information so that our nation grows in every area, because no matter what Moors are doing, it can be shared freely and we can all grow from it. Because as we grow, the resources we're manifesting the resources all at once. So we don't have to charge fiat for the information because our gifts, as we continue to grow and come together, it's going to be automatic. It's more than enough for everybody. Of everything that we want and need is more than enough. We need to produce. I'll tell you this, and then we can adjourn the call shortly thereafter. All of the resources that we produce are simply going to be filling the void that has been left by this transition. Right now, Moors actually have more money than anyone else on earth. We can all print up money all day, every day, but we need products that are natural to buy with the money. We have all the money we could ever spend, all that we could ever create. We have the money. Money is not our problem. We really don't have a problem, but we do need to produce products and services and accept our own money for that. And the way that that is best expressed is through appropriations, because then bank credits come with our money through appropriations. For those who have been through the appropriations process the appropriations process is where, let's say, the county, King County, will put out an RFP, a request for proposal, saying, we need some people to help the homeless people. We need some people to point the homeless people to resources. So we need resource advisors. Or we need farmers because the people need to eat. We need food suppliers, and that's more the term they would use, food suppliers. So then you would write up what you do and look at what they're saying is due and use your affidavits to speak. And then you say, okay, this is going to cost $300,000, or and I'm just using that as an example. Well, you're talking about $300,000 in lawful money. They're talking about, they just say $300,000 from the Treasury. So what does that look like for us? When the award is given, and it's not given, it's actually, it has to be accepted by us or else it's not even valid. The Treasury, which is us, really, but the custodians in the Office of Treasury will send an award letter that says, Pauline's food supply company has accepted this $300,000 bid. They put the bid, they put an affidavit together, and they've accepted it. Well, now that they've accepted it, what we do is we take that $300,000 letter and we say, okay, we're going to administer this by using Delarium, our money. So what would we do? We would send that letter along with our affidavits to the custodians in the Office of Bank and say, put this many credits in this account. This is a deposit command. You have the letter from the Treasury, the custodians in the Office of Treasury. I'm the Treasury, and I'm saying take those $300,000 and put it in this account, those credits in this account. And then what do? If it were me, I would print up Delarium and say anyone, you know, and I would put my stamp and seal on the Delarium and say anyone who wants these products, you can bring your credits and I will issue you this Delarium for the product and the product. And so whenever my Delarium comes back to me, because they've issued credits, bank credits, they transferred bank credits. And then I gave them Delarium for their bank credits so that whenever they want to come and get products, they can come and get products, show the Delarium that has my seal and my autograph on it. And then we will transfer the credits back and forth, however that goes, and then they get their products and we get our credit. And that is how you it's not even circumventing, because you're not in the same system as any corporation pretending to be the IRS, because we're the original IRS. So even as we're working through our banking and manifesting our banking, that is what we're looking at in terms of banking and printing up our own. Because see, our bank, there's another iteration of United States dollars that we're looking at that it's going to have gold in it, gold thread in it. That is what we want to print and have everyone use for bank credit. And you would get it from the bank. And it can be green with red writing, or it can be gold, you know. Let me just show you really quickly an example of what that would look like, because I'll just show you an example. Let's see. Let me show you just what that would look like. Okay, here it is. I saw this, and I want to thank Justice Kamal for this. Let me share this screen really quickly. This is what I had in mind as far as I think the one for Ghana was the most beautiful one that I had seen. Let me see if I can find that one. This is it right here. This one that's on the screen that has, you know, that has a, just one moment, let me get that out the way. Okay, there it is. Yeah, so I was looking at something like that, you know, which, you know, I think is beautiful. And so we're just exploring all options and moving forward, you know, however we see fit to do that. And according to all law, we have the authority to move forward in any way that we see fit, including the according to what's being stated in the Declaration of Independence. We get to state how we manifest who we are. So with that being said, is there any other questions, comments, or anything of that nature? Okay. With that being said, we will adjourn here and meet back again on Thursday.
Islam?
Actually, Sunday. Yes, Islam Empress.
Yeah, so I'm preparing for a grocery demonstration, but there's only one thing that I'm just a little bit confused about. So I did the lean and everything, and I know I watched a video where you said put alarm with lean. Now, I had done so many leans that I had to mail out, so I didn't do that part, but I was like, okay, maybe I can send it with the other information that I'm sending to the grocery store. So I know that the Delarium is I'm sending it so it can be paid to me. But I'm like, okay, should I take out the amount that I need for groceries for the year with that Delarium as well, or is that more Delarium that I should send for that? Yeah, and then my other question is, if you send the documents via email, not to the one acting as CEO of the company, and you send a scanned Delarium, they can only use what you're saying it's designated for, right? Like, is there people that use 100 million, for example, and say, okay, from this one scan, take 200 million, or I was a little bit worried about that part.
So if you're worried about it, that means do some more study on clarity there.
Okay.
Where groceries are concerned, if I were doing that demonstration, I would do exact numbers.
Okay.
I would do, so for example, I would say something like 200 a week, and then send 200 a week for a month, which will be 800.
Okay, so send 800 then. You'd not every week send.
I don't know
200.
how much you use on groceries. I don't know how much you spend on groceries. So that is some study that you can do. And determine for yourself what you think is feasible.
Okay. No, I'm talking about with the lien part, because it says everybody that is on the lien then is now, they owe you 100 million, right? And so if you send that 100 million, then is it the 100 million for everybody on the lien and all heirs and assignees and agents and derivatives thereof, or is it just 100 million for one, or is that a difference that you need to designate?
I will let your spirit determine that, because you're sovereign. It's up to you. Either one of those, all of that is up to you.
Okay, because I know we've also come up with you've also helped us come up with the merchant cards. So I'm I do want to create a merchant card. So I'm trying to figure out all these pieces, but and okay.
Well, and think about too, Empress, how many different apparatus and cards and checks and all of that we got in our sleep from them. I mean, we had conveyance methods for fiat to run back and forth in every way possible, including on the phone. You just call and pick up the phone and give them some numbers, and some fiat is moved.
Okay, that's true.
You know, we're doing the same thing. We're just matching it point for point.
Okay. Sounds good. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Islam.
You're welcome, Empress, and thank you for your demonstration.
Yes.
They are necessary. All of that is necessary because the custodians that receive that see our demonstrations and that are looking at who receive the documentation and things, they know our science very well. They know Moorish science. They know what Moors do. They know we've been speaking by affidavit all this time. They know that. And now they're not even, they're not even giving folks, when we first started doing it, it was a little tougher. Now it's not so much, not so much. So we just have to continue speaking competently, to the resources. They know that that the resources are ours. They are called gatekeepers. Gate means government, really, from the biblioteliotech perspective. And so they know that everything belongs to us. They know that. And I'll say this too more, that whole Children of Israel piece where they were able to take all of everything they needed as they were on their way out of captivity. And captivity has to do with capitalism. Let's make no mistake about that. That is how captivity is expressed if you let someone else govern your capitalism. But I digress. So on their way out, they were able to take as much gold and silver and food and whatever as they could take. And we're getting close to that point right there. We're there already, really. So we, let's just keep moving forward and doing our demonstrations and making sure that everything that we do is as competent and peaceful as it can be. It must be peaceful, but the competence piece, we, always demonstrate at the level of your overstanding. If you find that you're going to do a demonstration and you still have, some things that are kind of nagging your spirit, answer them for yourself. Do the research on them before you do the demonstration. If there are some things nagging. Now, you're not always going to know or you're not always going to be able to see beforehand what the outcome is going to be, but that can't stop us from demonstrating. We have to still demonstrate. Yeah. So, Morris, thank you so much for your demonstrations. Our nation is just all that. I just love it. So, with that being said, if there's nothing further, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Islam.
Peace and grand rising.
Grand rising.
Islam.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. Islam. Islam. Indeed. Islam.